I'm Manu, and I've been in the blockchain space for a bit of time. I started looking at blockchain in 2015 as a tool for certifying collectibles. In 2017, we actually started coding what is now the Alphaa IO API. And the objective there was to use blockchain as a tool to certify, at the time, artwork. We've then expanded our reach into collectibles, luxury, and communities. So basically, for every use case that I take on, I solve three problems: authenticity, resale, and community building through Web3 tools.
Okay. How many other people are in your exact field? How many other companies are doing what you're doing?
How many people are doing what we do? I think there's a lot of people that are doing small parts of what we do, but not a lot that are actually putting the whole thing together. And I think there's a few elements that kind of like differentiate us from the rest, right? We've always believed in ease of use. So the first thing we did when we started to create our platform was remove the crypto wallet element, because we believe the crypto wallet is kind of like a gatekeeper, right, into mass adoption. And so we've always built custodial wallets that were really easy to access with just your email or your phone number, and we've always priced assets in fiat currency. There's a few more people doing that nowadays, but I do believe that we're very unique in the way that we think of interfaces, in the way that we think of integrations. We're not faithful to one specific layer one. We'll use whatever chain the client wants to use. So short answer is, I don't know of anyone that's doing exactly what we're doing as an enterprise SaaS provider, creating the most easy to use blockchain framework in the market.
Okay, so let's very quickly and very shortly, why don't you explain to me what a custodial wallet is versus not?
For sure. So a custodial wallet is administered by a third party, right? Which means the keys, and what are the keys? When you sign up for a MetaMask wallet, for example, it'll give you that crazy passcode phrase, which everybody's terrified of losing, because if you lose that crazy passcode phrase, you lose access to your wallet, and consequently, you lose access to all of your assets that are in that wallet. A custodial wallet, a great example is Coinbase's interface, right? Where I log into Coinbase with an email and a phone number, something that I'm used to doing. It feels just like a Web2 interface, but Coinbase actually goes ahead and creates a wallet for me and hides the private key somewhere so that I don't have to worry about that, so that I can just access that interface with something that's easy to use, like your phone number or your email.
So a custodial wallet is protection for you and simplification for you by a trusted third-party company.
100%. That's exactly the point of a custodial wallet. It gives you protection.
I want to say exactly.
Yeah.
It's very short.
Yeah, for sure. So a custodial wallet protects you at the end of the day, because it means that you don't have to keep that private key. Someone will keep it for you and cryptograph it, put it in a place where it's safe and really hard to access. And at the same time, it's a really simple interface. If you've ever set up a MetaMask wallet, unless you're a developer, it's a very complicated process. And then actually using that MetaMask wallet to buy a token becomes even more complicated, because you'll have to calculate the gas fee, add the right amount of whatever cryptocurrency is necessary for that interface. That could change in a space of a minute because of the volatility of the asset. In a custodial, you can usually use a currency like US dollars to pay for an asset and to enter the Web3 space without even knowing that you're in the Web3 space.
So why would someone want a non-custodial wallet?
I think the OG crypto people want non-custodial wallets so that they can think that they're fully in control of their assets and that there's no gatekeeper into that specific community.
Is one more secure than the other?
It depends. We could have custodial wallets that are way more secure because they go through authenticating factors, or we could have custodial wallets that are not built properly, and then they will be less safe than, for example, a MetaMask that has established its place in the market.
So is regulation of the wallets an important thing? Certification of companies? We know regulation is coming. Is this the one area where even the most staunch decentralization fanatic will go, yeah, okay.
That's an interesting, like every time we talk about regulation in crypto, that's going to open up like two very different, is the dog kind of like getting in our way? Just, can you hear him? No, okay. So every time we talk about regulation in crypto, there's going to be different elements. There's pros and cons, right? And yeah, I think perhaps regulating custodial wallets that are somehow related to DeFi is a must. Because they're connected to major currencies, which means they could actually impact price action on those currencies. If there's a hack, for example, on Coinbase that takes out a certain amount of Bitcoin, that's going to affect the Bitcoin ecosystem as a whole, because there's a lot of money that is on that specific custodial system. But at the same time, if it's a custodial wallet, the airplane. Store of value, unit of account, and medium of exchange.
Okay.
And so, obviously, those three things are there, right? Store of value. You can store your value in Bitcoin nowadays. Unit of account. There's a lot of fluctuating there that makes it a little bit harder. And medium of exchange. You can exchange your Bitcoin for $1 in a certain kind of like amount of money. So those three elements are going to be there. But it's so important that we understand that the float needs to respect market value and market conditions. So that's why I think it's physically impossible to have a stable coin in cryptocurrency. Even if you had all of the reserves in the world to kind of like back that value, it would still mean that, market conditions could change and you would have to burn through all of your reserves and eventually it would unpeg. It's happened to every major currency in the world. It's happened to the US dollar versus gold. It's happened to the pound. It's happened to, the Indonesian renminbi. Like Soros also broke that and also broke the pound. So it's history repeating itself over and over again. So it's not because it's a cryptocurrency that it's not going to respect the same conditions. That's my only point. And that's why stable coins will never work.
Okay. So would a governing body help it in its fluctuations before it breaks? You're saying it's inevitably going to break.
If it's a stable coin and it's set to some sort of parity, it's probably going to break because the parity will have to change. Even if you have a governing body behind it, the only thing it's going to do is soften the movements of the parity by putting in and burning its reserve, buying more reserves, doing what the Fed does with the banks, like now you need to deposit more funds because we need those funds, now I'll give you some more back, etc. So the parity will have to move, so it can't be stable. It needs to be fluctuating. That's the whole point. Because the conditions on each side of the market change. The conditions on the US dollar can change. The conditions on the coin can change. How are you going to set that amount? It makes no sense, just economically. And I don't think regulation is going to change that. Regulation might soften the blow or make it like take a little bit longer till it, unpegs. But it's naturally going to unpeg. It's happened to Argentina. It's happened to Brazil. I can keep going through my list over and over again, but like history is bound to repeat itself, and cryptocurrency is just another form of currency.
We were talking about the stable coin and how you don't believe it would work. And so how are the people who want to push for a US-backed cryptocurrency going to make that happen and be anywhere successful compared to Ethereum and Bitcoin?
I think it's based
without that concept of a third party or of a governing body of the Fed being able to make that happen.
I think for any currency to hit its full potential, and may it be US backed or international or localized, it's based on use cases and it's based on utility. And if the government wants to put forward a protocol that is backed by itself, it should be using it for its own kind of like, use cases. There's a lot that can be done in education. There's a lot that can be done. So for a currency, regardless of if it's backed by a government or if it's backed by, a group of people or if it's a DAO, to, have credibility, I believe it's a lot more about the use cases that are being developed on it. It's about the use cases that are being developed on that chain and on that token. And so if the US government wants to actually back a protocol, it needs to use it. If they're using that protocol for use cases in education, for example, there's a lot that can be done by using blockchain as financial aid, for example, and blockchain tokens that have resale value attached to those students into those universities. Healthcare, personal identification, they should put out their own token and actually go ahead and use them. As they reach more and more mass adoption, the value of that token will rise, and it will be proportional to the amount of people that they are helping. So you don't necessarily need to peg to the US dollar. You don't have to burn through an amount of reserves. You're building trust by usability. Okay.
So then how do you respond to the people who are lobbying Congress to jump into this space?
I think Congress should jump into this space, but it should jump into this space once again by using the technology to provide a more efficient tool for society.
Do you really trust that these guys even understand the technology, much less have that, kumbaya philosophy?
They absolutely don't understand the technology, and that's why we have people like Elizabeth Warren saying that crypto is bad, boo-hoo-hoo, without even understanding what she's talking about. But there are other senators like Cory Booker, Senator Gillibrand, that are interested, that are sitting down with people like me and with other industry peers to understand what this technology can do, what this means in terms of access to capital, what this means in terms of a better creative economy, and what are the opportunities that can be created across the country. And how is it that they can maintain these jobs in America? And how is it that they keep companies like us here, by creating financial conditions that are, effective for running a business, for if we map the impact of what this neo-renaissance is going to bring into the U.S. economy in terms of, what it means to be a creator, the impact is massive. Like Spotify traditionally has a median number paid by artists of around $200 for their life cycle. If you look at NFT creators, that number is already closer to $17,000. That's a lot of new money that is coming into the economy, and a lot of new money that is coming in for professions that have traditionally been, marginalized or have, suffered a lot of issues on not benefiting from their product once it hits the market. So just the impact on the resale royalty, on the creative economy on its own, if, the regulators are to look into this and to look into the amount of money that is being created and maybe even kind of like transferred over from, the really, really wealthy masses, means that this technology is a tool to create more opportunity and to create a fairer ecosystem. So, instead of thinking of how can we launch a token that we can then regulate and attach it to the US dollar, because there's not much there, right? There's no innovation in putting that forward. Let's think of use cases that would benefit from this technology, and let's think of how this is benefiting the underdog. Let's think of how it's creating wealth and income for a class that has access to capital.
This is kind of like saying we're going to regulate the software side of tech, or the hardware side of tech, or the desktop computer side of tech, but we're going to leave apps alone. How is that going to work that Congress, in all of that, and what it is going to adopt that Web3 philosophy of the OG style of, okay, we all know that this needs to be regulated, but please just leave this alone.
So figuring out what to regulate and what not to regulate is really hard. I'll give it to Congress. And even in Web 2, there's still telecom law that is being used to this day. And so there needs to be an allotment of budget. And I think they started off well with, just basically telling us that the way that they're going about this is if something generates cash, if it fails a Murphy test or if it passes a Murphy test, I don't know, whatever, angle you want to use to it, if it generates cash, you will be considered a security and you will be thrown under the SEC. That's telling us something. And that's telling me something as well when I'm developing use cases with our clients. Firstly, let's keep it attached to a physical element, because then an NFT is not a security. It's a digital receipt. And it'll set the rules of engagement of that physical asset, number one. So I feel like I feel more comfortable in developing those kinds of use cases. But it also means that, for example, for this movie, if we were to go ahead and use an NFT to fund it, it would be very hard for us to have a sort of like share of future streaming value attached to it, because then it could necessarily be considered a security and thrown under the SEC. And so at least we have a little bit of clarity that, if something is going to generate cash, I would personally want to kind of like stay away from it for now, because we're not even sure how the SEC is going to be regulating it. And you could use the function.
This concept of you have these people who want to make lots and lots and lots of money off of blockchain, that are pushing for regulation and are waiting for regulation to be able to basically, there's two types of people. There's people who live off of a good and a service and they work for a living, and then there's people who live off of capital gains.
Yeah.
And you have all these people who want not a more comfortable life off of capital gains, but an empire.
The Bitcoin maxis.
I don't know, that's a loaded term, because that means something different to a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And I think most of the people that I'm talking about are really not truly in the Bitcoin space right now.
So basically, how to separate people that are using blockchain as a tool to create more opportunity versus the people that are asking for regulation so that institutional funds can come in and just basically ramp up the value of cryptocurrency as a whole, right? And I think that's a very, very interesting discussion to have, because the whole point of blockchain and decentralization is giving power back to the people, and giving power back to the people so that they own their own data and they can do with it as they please. And obviously creating a lot of opportunity across the different ecosystems. And I think that's kind of like what Satoshi wanted when he, went ahead and minted the first Bitcoin, to go and tell the man that they can't regulate the way that we use money, the way that we do things. And so it's kind of like interesting to see, we're going full cycle when these DeFi investors or these cryptocurrency investors are, asking for regulation so that institutional money can actually enter the ecosystem and basically use it as a new asset class, as a new investment class, with no regard to utility, with no regard to use cases. And so it's kind of like I don't want to say counterintuitive, but it is kind of counterintuitive, right? Because you're going back to something that was created to be fully unregulated and decentralized into, now we have money in it, now my stake is already in, I want regulation, and I want it to be more centralized so that, the value of the assets itself can go up simply because of regulation. So it's completely wrong. It's completely against the ethos of blockchain as a whole, right? One thing is to see the value of different currencies go up due to expanded use cases, due to utility, due to more people being a part of that chain. And that's why I think it's really interesting, for example, to look at tokens like Polygon, right? Which have, so to look at tokens like Polygon, right, which have gained a lot of value even during this crypto winter. If you look at the coin itself, the Polygon Matic, right, the token, it's gone up in value close to 200% since NFT NYC, which was kind of like the moment where the bubble really burst after Terra Luna and everything. And it's gone up in value due to utility, due to more people adopting the technology, due to its ease of use, due to how cheap it is to mint on it, due to, you know, the amount of things that you can build on that network. And that's what we should be looking at. We shouldn't be looking at, you know, cryptocurrencies as a tool for, you know, let's buy this before the hedge funds come in and, you know, throw the value up, which is going to happen. But, you know, maybe it should happen for the right reasons. Maybe it should happen because of use cases and not because of news flow.
So part of what they're perpetuating is this idea of kind of a combination of all boats rise and trickle down economics. They can do their thing and make their money, and you can still keep doing what you want to do. Or is that wrong and it's a good versus evil, and we're on the beginning of this battle?
Let's go back to the theory around bubbles, right? The theory around bubbles is bubbles are good because it attracts a lot of capital to a new industry, and that capital ends up being deployed across a lot of different things, good things and bad things. We have to agree that, you know, there is some sort of truth to that, because think of the dot-com bubble. The amount of money that went into fiber optics at the time was incomprehensible. It was just way too much money. But it also meant that we're able to have 5G technology nowadays because of the amount of fiber that was laid down unnecessarily, right? So the analogy of all boats float when a lot of money comes into the economy has some truth to it, because it will present opportunities, and it will present opportunities for technologies that we might not need today, but we might need in 10 years, and they will already be built because of the amount of money that was attracted into the economy. But at the same time, it also means that, you know, things that had new business in being around, rug pools, etc., also get funded, and that leads to negative news flow around the industry. That leads to more misconceptions about, you know, Web3 as a whole being related to cryptocurrencies. So you have to have a little bit of a unbiased look when you're looking into the industry, and you have to understand that, you know, at the end of the day, yes, more money coming into this industry will lead to more innovation and will lead to faster innovation. But at the same time, there needs to be diligence around where this money is going. There needs to be diligence around the investments. That there needs to be more understanding on what are the different layer ones. I had a call today with one of the layer ones. They claim to be one of the biggest layer ones, top 20. I'd never heard of them before. And I asked them point blank, I'm like, why should I choose to mint on your system versus all the other big ones? And he couldn't give me a clear answer. So maybe we have too many layer ones out there. Maybe we do need more consolidation so that we can focus on, you know, chains that are faster, chains that are more secure, chains that are scalable, and, you know, deploy as much as possible on those chains.
I want to talk about that after this next question. So I want to kind of lead towards, do those layer ones, as you put it, new term for me, are they going to become more industry specific for marketplace survival, if you will, and is that good for the industry? But I want to back up just a little bit before we get to that. So essentially, it's going to be good for the little guy who's already in, but isn't it going to be harder for the struggling artists and minorities and marginalized groups to get in? If you're already in, then your boat's going to rise when the big money comes in. But is that not going to make it difficult to perpetuate the Web3 philosophy of...
More money should make it easier, because more money will mean faster transaction times for a lower cost, and easier technologies for the artist to be able to use. Technologies that don't require code. Technologies that you can very easily go and mint a token by just uploading an image that feels just like Web 2 infrastructure. So I don't necessarily think that more money is bad for the little guy, but regulation could actually be bad for the little guy, because regulation will lead to more expensive protocols. It will lead to more dead weight, which is, for anyone that's ever studied economics, taxation basically just causes dead weight. So if you're regulating an industry that is meant to be decentralized, that's going to lead to higher transactional costs. So once again, we got to figure out where this regulation goes into play. And, you know, if it's directed to DeFi, agreed 100%. Like, you don't want to have like trading companies that are going to be going bankrupt, or because that would be bad for the industry. That's bad news flow, and that kind of like it information right now is one of the biggest challenges for Web3 to hit mass adoption. People are scared of the word crypto because they immediately associate it with really volatile cryptocurrencies. They don't understand that the underlying technology, blockchain, can be used to create a lot of opportunity, can be used to open up a massive, pool of wealth for creators.
But isn't this also going to lead to companies that are creating kind of almost like a similarity or an expansion of the custodial wallet? There's so much regulation that I'm going to tax you and become the middleman. Again, we've got a middleman company coming in, because only through me or someone like me are you, as the new little person into the industry, going to be able to navigate it.
That already happens. If you go on Coinbase, I use Coinbase, by the way. I'm not, shitting on Coinbase. But if you go on Coinbase and you actually go and you buy some crypto, it's going to be way more expensive than actually going ahead and doing it yourself. Getting your own MetaMask, finding that crypto, going out into the universe. That's going to be cheaper. That's really hard to do. How much is your time worth at the end of the day? How much is the security of those assets, especially if you're buying Bitcoin to hold? You want it to be in a place where you know it's safe. And so I will gladly pay that premium to have that ease of use. And I think the more Coinbases we get out there, which will come in due to capital at the end of the day, the cheaper these transaction costs will actually get, because there's more competition in the ecosystem.
But you're talking about the currency itself.
No. I'm talking about the custodials. The custodial operators right now can charge a large premium because there's very few of them that are doing their job properly, and they're actually secure. If there's more custodial operators out there that are providing a easy-to-use infrastructure that is connecting to several different use cases, the transactional costs for these custodials has to come down because of competition in the ecosystem. It's just law of economics.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, the way that is existing, when regulation and big money comes in, is the NFT and blockchain industrial or technological portion of it, separate from the currency. Is that too going to become, companies are you're having to go to a big company that's operating in a custodial way for the artist to navigate through NFTs, because it's even harder now to figure out how to mint and deal with the regulations that are coming, and the big money is going to kind of taint the whole thing on that level.
Once again, it depends. It depends on where that regulation is going to hit. Hey, Felicity. If the regulation is only hitting DeFi instruments, or only hitting instruments that are generating cash through the Murphy test, right? Then creators have nothing to be concerned about. There's going to be platforms out there that are going to be able to provide a framework for them to be able to mint their NFTs, to collect their resale royalties, continue to do what they do on their daily operations. So we do not know where the regulation is going to come into play. But if we see the regulation actually only going after things that are considered securities, then the tool for creators, for fundraising, for, the little guy are not going to be affected.
Do you believe that that's where it will stay, even if it starts there?
I have no idea, because as I said, we haven't regulated the Web 2 space properly. We're still using telecom law to regulate, the big data companies. And so the SEC is extremely underfunded, does not have the resources to take this on. There would have to be a new government agency that is brought forward for regulation in this space for us to see any model that actually makes sense.
And you have hope that will be a good thing versus corruption and self-centered interest?
I'm from Brazil, so my definition of corruption is quite far from, anything that I've ever seen in the United States. The definition of corruption down there is it's legit. That's how corruption goes. But I do believe that it depends on who we have in power over the next, 4 years as a president. It depends on Senate. It depends on the House. There's a million variables. But if we can get the message out there, and if we can create more education in the ecosystem, and that we can show, you know, the kind of opportunity that is being brought to the underdog, I feel like we have a better chance of reaching a agreement that is good for everyone.
Okay, so in most industries, you have an association that represents that industry. And if you were to survey 100 people that are at your level or deeper, or maybe less than your level to our level, do you think that they would all think the same of what you just said? And would they be behind the concept of some sort of OG union association that represents that concept and makes sure that happens?
Have you met the crypto people? I feel like, hey, come on, both of you. They've spoken. They've spoken. No, I don't think we're going to get to consensus anytime soon. I think there are some governments that are doing a great job in pulling in members of that community. Governor Newsom has called a meeting that even I was included in. Like, you know, Senators Booker and Gillibrand are taking kind of initiative and sitting down with everyone and understanding the different points of view, understanding the use cases, which I think is the starting point. And it comes down to us as well, like to go and request that our government officials listen, that they understand what this technology is, that they understand the amount of opportunity that this will bring, and that it's happening regardless. I think that's the most important point. It's already happening. The back-end revolution, as I usually like to say, is already in the works. You know, the amount of conversations that I have on a daily basis with a number of different industries that are government regulated and that are interested in bringing these tools into play. Think of identity, think of healthcare, think of, you know, massive industries that are going to see the impact of blockchain and that are going to implement blockchain tools regardless.
What are the obstacles or the goalposts or the steps to get us to mass adoption?
Ease of use, what gets us to mass adoption? Ease of use, number one. It's a big one.
It's 2 props or something.
It's like a army. Maybe I'm like in one of like the army fly zones, you know?
Well, the same on there.
Yeah. It's all private jets. It's all private jets.
A lot of it. I heard they were going to shut the private jets down and of course we'll go back to Venice.
No way.
That's what I heard
They live close by. They're not going to do it.
It's the people right around the airport that have been pushing it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But I know there has been a push for that.
Okay, so steps to mass adoption, right? Number one, ease of use.
Go back into it.
So steps to mass adoption. Number one, ease of use. Number two, information. People need to understand what it is that we do and how it is that it affects them. And I think that's why we have such interest in everything that we put out in short form content, because they just want to learn and understand. And number three, grants, financing, opportunity for the little guy to actually go out and use the technology because it's going to benefit the way that they do their own life.
How is blockchain going to, in order for mass adoption to really exist, there's a large percentage of the population who is going to be using blockchain before they even know they're using blockchain?
Yes, 100%.
And so how do we go from 70% penetration to complete 100% penetration of mass adoption, where those people are starting to realize how blockchain is already influencing their life?
I think it's embedding blockchain in tools that people already use on a daily basis, in the way that they buy a house, in the way that they go to the doctor, in the way that they buy a car. And so, you know, obviously utility and community building is super relevant for kind of like that first initial phase of the bell curve, right? The early majority. So that's why we're very interested in sports, for example. Sports are very mainstream. They're very democratic. They are natural communities. These people are, you know, they have a common interest. So the blockchain is a perfect tool for sports loyalty, right? To unify kind of like those initial communities. But that's literally just the tip of the iceberg. I feel like once you notice that buying a car that is blockchain backed means that you're actually, hey, get out of there. They're gonna bite your cables.
Yeah, that might not be good.
No, that's not good.
You do not want them shot.
No, that's not good for anyone. But you know, once you can see the benefits, right, of buying a car that has been on the blockchain and that the Carfax report is absolutely perfect because every interaction that car has had, every time it's gone through maintenance, every time it's switched hands, every time it's been in an accident is in its NFT, or for a person to realize that they, you know, no longer have to carry around their birth certificate, their marriage certificate, because everything, their entire human history can also be in an NFT, and that could lower their premiums in healthcare. That could, you know, increase their chances of getting into an incredible university because you have your entire transcript in one place and you can choose what you want to share and what you don't want to share. That's when we'll see kind of like real mass adoption, because it'll become ingrained in the way that we live, ingrained in the way that we, you know, apply to college, ingrained in the way that we apply for, you know, medical care. It'll all come from these blockchain certificates that are connected to the person. And that's one of the things that interests me the most and that we're very far away from doing. Maybe California's a little closer. I've heard that California has now authorized that birth certificates and marriage certificates be issued on chain. But for the rest of the world, it's still going to take a minute because we're going to go through a lot of different privacy laws.
Isn't this kind of the fetus of Orwell's 1984 Big Brother?
No,
aren't we talking about something that could be really scary?
If you own your data, it's a lot less scary, right? So the whole point is it's the opposite of 1984. It's Apple's personal computer 1984 ad, where you're reclaiming your power. Your data's already out there. You're already in databases everywhere, and your data's being sold all around. What I'm saying is you get to own your data and choose what you want to share and what you don't want to share, what you want to make private. That's the ultimate switch in terms of power and power dynamics, which means if I choose to give a company that I believe in my data, it's because I want to be engaged by that company and that company only, not by the 20 competitors that are out there that can go now and buy my information from a database, but from that company that I believe in and that I have some sort of ownership or connection with. And with that, I can receive real utility and real perks for being a part of that community. But at the end of the day, the decision was mine.
So you're saying even though your personal information is on the blockchain, it's locked, if you will, and there is kind of the ability to toggle on and off the particular parts of your data that you want to share and who you want to share it with?
Yeah, that's what the blockchain brings to us. It brings the capacity of anyone, regardless of income, to set their different privacy levels. So think of MLS.
You stumbled on privacy levels. I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Can you go back to it? The blockchain allows anyone to.
Okay, that's what the blockchain does. It allows anyone, regardless of income, to set their different privacy levels for different actions. So a great example is, think of MLS, right? So a rich person buys a house. They're not going to put their name there as the owner of that house. They'll have an LLC. They'll have some sort of kind of like instrument that is protecting their identity. A person that doesn't have the capacity to even form an LLC or doesn't even know how has their name on the MLS, which means that I can now go and access that MLS and know exactly how much money they paid for that house. So their information is out there in the open. On the blockchain, I'd be able to set the different privacy levels of that MLS and say, make this public or not make it public. Maybe it makes sense for me to have people knowing that I own that house. I could make that public. Or maybe it doesn't make sense, and so this is hidden by the owner. So, you know, it's actually creating a more democratic tool for privacy levels and for data protection and making it available for every person at a very easy-to-use, cost-effective manner.
So whether we're there or not, yeah, I don't know, but can it also allow me or you to say, you know what, I want to put my medical history out there because I have a history of this and I want research to benefit from the history of this, but I don't want my name attached to it because I don't want to be influenced by an insurance company, a job, or any of these things. Are we in a world in which suddenly, once people truly understand this, medical research and other forms of data analytics is going to shoot through the roof?
100%. And so, thinking of medical research, I think that's a fantastic example, right? You'll be able to aggregate your entire history and, as you said, hide your specific name, but make your entire healthcare history made available for research that will now be able to kind of like aggregate that. Hey, come on. Start over from the medical history.
Yeah.
Ow, fuck, this is like horrible. It's like so scratchy. Okay, so one of the huge benefits of, having these different privacy levels in medical history is you can 100% segregate what you can make available for researchers. So it could be your entire specific medical history, your blood type, things that you've gone through. Maybe you have like a disease that is very rare, but you can hide your name, hide where you live in the world, hide your income level, or make it available. It's up to you. But once people understand that they control their data, they control the way that it is displayed, we will for sure have a boom in research because there will be a lot more data to go about. And the same thing when I'm signing up for healthcare and for insurance, right? If I choose to open up my entire medical history and show that, in good faith, everything that's happened to me, that'll automatically lower my premium.
So let's talk about, in a lot of industries, if you have the secret sauce, you keep it to yourself. You don't really share because that's your profit, that's your value in the workplace. That's, it is everything to have inside information in what you're doing in life. And while there is some of that, this is very, very different.
Yeah, the way we think of sharing information in the blockchain space should be different. There's a book called The Lean Startup that says that, this idea of hiding your idea is really dumb and that you should talk about your idea as much as possible so that you can mature it. And the other point is, if your idea is so replicable that just by talking about it, people are going to steal it, then it's not a very good idea to begin with. If it's not defensible enough, what's the entire point? And I feel like we're living a moment in the Web3 industry where everything is so new and so fresh and that people are trying different things and they're kind of like going through different use cases that, the more we talk about the things we're doing, the better, because maybe there's someone that's, has a minting engine that's faster and cheaper than my minting engine, but maybe my interface is easier to use, which means we could collaborate. I can give them my interface and I can provide an API integration so that, we can display all of their NFTs and everybody wins with that. The market size is humongous. It's the world economy. That's the market size of what we're facing in blockchain right now. We should not be afraid of talking about the things that we do out of competition. There is no competition. These ideas are going to change so much. They're going to adapt so much. The use cases are going to be built specifically for our clients in our different verticals. And there are people that are doing some things very well and other things not as well. Why don't we just collaborate and build things together?
So this, in a way, is kind of socialism.
I'm not a socialist. Firstly, I have 2 minutes. I got to go.
I didn't say communist.
God, how cute are you? How cute are you? Come on up. Come on up. We're going to talk about socialism. We're going to talk about socialism. We're going to talk about socialism.
Web3 is not socialism.
We're going to explain how Web3 could be considered socialism.
Okay, do I need to ask the question or you just want to go?
So per my dog's reaction, you see that, the term socialism in this house is not exactly, a universal truth. Look at him. He's like, no socialism. We're capitalist puppies.
So maybe socialism isn't the right word, but there is a...
I feel like there are meritocratic elements that come into play with blockchain that could be strongly associated with capitalism, right? With, creating free market economy, with removing taxation. And that's why I feel like I'm so resistant to using the term socialism per se, especially in an ecosystem where people are compensated for their actions, where we know that socialism has a lot of free riders, you know, in the model, because, you know, everybody gets the same regardless of participation. So one could say that the ethos of blockchain, even though it is decentralized, is the opposite of socialism and actually goes back to the principle of liberalism. If you think of Hayek, right? Hayek thinks that everyone should be granted the same base opportunities. Everybody should get an education voucher. Everybody should get a healthcare voucher. But then after that, you should be let the natural differences emerge. And people should be compensated by, you know, their level of work, their level of participation, their level of, you know, whatever emerges from that same base case, which is, I think, where we're coming at from blockchain, right? Like, if you have certain mechanisms that are built into tokens or to DAOs, et cetera, that are you know, putting forward checks and balances of participation in society through technology, it means that you're virtually ending the free rider. The free rider will be removed. The free rider will not receive any points. The free rider will get no utility because they are not contributing. But the contributor will, you know, will benefit the most. And so it is a utopian model in many ways, because it's, you know, if we get to that, then, you know, we're very happy with society. And it's one of the questions that I have about DAOs. I'm a part of 2 DAOs. I'm the founder of one, and I'm a member in another one. And I keep asking myself if DAOs are even feasible, or do we need a leader that is actually going to set the terms, that is going to burden most of the weight, you know, shoulder the weight, and kind of like be the one that, you know, is calling all the shots. And so blockchain technology is here to provide these conditions, to provide these rules of engagement. But I don't necessarily think it's going to shift the power dynamics and, you know, give everybody the same. We all have the same opportunities, but the natural differences are going to shine even more now.
The technology is kind of the state.
The technology is kind of the state, yeah. But the technology is a fair state that doesn't benefit relationships. It doesn't matter who you know. It matters how much you participate.
But it is the playing field leveler.
It's the playing field leveler. The technology is leveling the playing field, which makes it very exciting.
Okay, so let's back up before we talk about the DAOs and all of that. There is still this community. There is this all-for-one mentality that is ingrained in socialism if you buy into the concept. There is this, it's not a zero-sum game, and there is a desire to help each other to a certain degree, because helping you helps raise the technology and the community in general.
Yeah, but the difference, like, if you think of socialism and providing opportunity and thinking of the whole as more important than the one, then there could be some sort of analogy with DAOs. But the point is, in socialism, there aren't really any tools to, you know, make sure that the person that is participating the most, that is shouldering the most weight, is making more, is benefiting from this ecosystem. And in an ideal blockchain world, you know, the person that is participating the most will make the most.
Our interactions are only governed by our interactions. So if you treat me unfairly or I treat you unfairly, there's no sheriff, there is no state, there is no guidelines, there is no safety net, there is no welfare. It's just purely peer-to-peer interaction.
I believe it's peer-to-system interaction, and that's why you set the guidelines in a way that they're benefiting the whole, to your point, and less about, you know, how we're interacting with one another. That is irrelevant. It's what are we building, right? What did you bring in? How many people did you bring in to join the community? How many things did you sell? You know, you can set actual thresholds of performance that need to be, you know, hit. For example, for our sports platform, we built a loyalty schema in the back end that is ranking fans based on participation, based on purchasing collectibles, based on how they, interact with their environment, based on number of games that they're going to, based on NFTs that they're claiming. So it's a conjunction of all of these things that then gets you to be airdropped floor seats because you've, gone through so many of these different challenges.
A social score with a prize?
Social score with a prize.
Um,
Which means that I could walk into a stadium sitting at the top of the bleachers, but end the game sitting on a floor seat, because this is my 1000th game, because this is the team that I've been supporting, because I've bought and sold different things, that I've raised funds for the players, and so it's creating a fairer.
Okay, so I get the peer to state analogy, but kind of what I'm driving at is there's this peer-to-peer scenario within it that you can design anything you want to in the space and create whatever you want, whether it be beneficial or crazy. I mean, you could create something where we're all descendants from aliens, and if you create this cult around it and people are willing to join, and drink the Kool-Aid, it is purely peer-to-peer, and there's nobody to say anything or really pass judgment on you.
Well, it's always
in
been.
This space.
Well, it's always been. Cults have always been peer-to-peer. That doesn't change anything. Like, if you were to join the cult where you actually drank the Kool-Aid and you died, there was nothing that stopped you. Like, society doesn't interfere in cults per se, because they're closed containers, they're closed environments. The only thing this technology is doing is it's bringing the tools, but it's not setting the rules. We still have to set our own rules of engagement within our own cults, and we could do crazy things without the blockchain. Cults have always existed. This isn't the technology that is going to make it possible.
Okay, but in fairness, not that I'm trying to defend it, they didn't drink the Kool-Aid until the 2 senators went down there and they killed the 2 senators. But that was great. We don't set the rules. That was an incredible soundbite. Okay,
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about the community. There is this real sense of helping each other and creating a tribe, and within that tribe you have your clientele. So your tribe and your clientele are kind of interwoven. Your team building, whatever it is kind of interwoven with the clients. It is an incredibly unique scenario where everything is interconnected.
That's amazing. Building strong communities and actually understanding who are the people that are central for you as a brand, for you as a person, for you as a politician. You're going to have that information, and people will gladly opt in because they are already your diehard supporters. They would already give you your data. The only thing that this means is their data is not made available to your competitors to come and spam me. I don't want to be spammed by Coach because I bought a Chanel bag. I want Chanel to offer me more bags because I'm a diehard Chanel supporter. I buy an Apple computer. I don't want PCs sending me emails. I'm obviously an Apple supporter. And so it's more about, you being able to control the patterns of consumption or the patterns of information or the patterns of relationships, because you're able to, own your data and separate who gets access to it.
Okay, so while there's no sheriff, so to speak, is there an overall moralistic code of ethics and a shunning of bad actors in the space?
Absolutely not. And we need more of that, because we know of people in the space that, are bad actors. We know of people in the space that have crazy allegations against them on, real crimes, and they're not shunned. They're still there. And that is why we need more information in the ecosystem, and we need, people to start hiding behind billions of dollars and to be made public. And we have an opportunity now. Once we're setting these new trends, we're aligning ourselves with people that represent us. And we should be able to cancel people, that are anti-Semitic or are, using whatever chain to, put forward white supremacy or things on that layer. And, you know, I feel like it comes from the people, right? It comes from the people knowing that these communities exist. Once again, the technology is not changing behavior. These behaviors have always existed. The technology is only providing a tool for checks and balances. And I think the layer ones are maybe going to be these sheriffs eventually of what is being deployed through their chains. And they will have the capacity to act as independents that are pulling child pornography NFTs, that are pulling, you know, white supremacists, that are pulling the data that shouldn't exist from their ecosystems, because at the end of the day, it's their ecosystems. And you can very easily, you know, connect with an AI company that is going to really quickly, you know, scrub the entire chain for whatever information.
So essentially, this at its heart is a masking system, yet at the same time, in a hypocrisy kind of way, you need some level of censorship for some level of this is unacceptable behavior.
Well,
who sets that?
I think that's where the custodials come in, right? The custodials are a great filter. And the custodials are a tool to protect the end user, but at the same time, they have access to all of the information, which, you know, they can or can't use. I haven't decided on what, you know, position we would take in a situation like that, because, you know, for now, we're still in stage one, right? Stage one is companies are minting their own NFTs, and these NFTs are representational of whatever. Eventually, people, the community holders of those NFTs, will be able to gather amongst themselves and start transacting amongst one another and start interacting in real life. And that's where I think we're going to see a lot of these, you know, weird things come into market. And then the community itself, the custodial or the owner of the community, will have the right to make a decision. Do I want to intervene, or do I want to let the community do its thing?
But you're talking about entity control versus community, I don't know what the right word is, a community that just basically we all see, like nobody was going to argue against Me Too or Black Lives Matter. But a lot of people looked at, say, the Tea Party and went, okay, but they still have the right to exist and to feel that way, until you start crossing over into the white supremacy in them, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you still, in a world in which this is by design hands-off, still need some sort of community, and maybe guidelines isn't the right word, but some sort of community involvement of, almost like, you know, the pedophile gets out of jail and somebody in the neighborhood goes and posts the pictures on all the telephone poles.
And once again, with this technology, it is easier to implement because the technology is just a tool. These communities have existed, these horrible events have existed historically, right? But through the technology, you could very easily isolate a wallet address that is issuing this, you know, behavior and kick them out. Kick them out of your chain.
Okay, but if it's not the level ones kicking them out of the chain, is there, I don't want to say a process within the DAO system?
Well, for the DAOs, it's even easier because that's how you set the rules of engagement in that community. So if someone is breaking the rules of engagement, and that could be child pornography, weapons, whatever you want to put there, you can very easily kick them out of the DAO.
But you're talking about one DAO. What I'm saying is there a spirit within the community that we have to police our own, as opposed to a sheriff, government entity, or someone coming in, imposing and infringing on our rights?
We don't know. It's too early. But I feel like, yeah, that'll be the path forward. You know, these DAOs will self-regulate. They'll regulate their own users, and you'll be able to join. You'll be able to join.
Let's go all the way back, because this is what I was really driving to. And everything we got was great.
Okay. So I feel like the path forward is a path in which, you know, the DAOs will self-regulate within one another, and that, you know, we will move into smaller tribes, more tribalism, less large state, right? Especially because it's way easier for you to kind of like connect with the tribes that you agree with in terms of taxation, or that you agree with in terms of, you know, services provided, and that you agree with in terms of, you know, child pornography isn't okay here, but, you know, and we're going to police that, and have those clear rules of engagement of that ecosystem minted into the token. You're signing an agreement when you buy that token that you will abide these rules. It's very different. You chose these rules. You chose to be a part of that community. If you break them, you'll automatically be canceled, expelled from a community of people that you want to be a part of because you chose them. It's very different than, you know, you're born in a country and you automatically, you know, are forced to live within those laws. You didn't have a choice. With this technology, you get to choose the way you want to live. But it also means that the price you pay if you break these rules should be larger.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit to what I was talking about before, as far as the chains becoming more specific towards a set of goals. Do you believe that this ties into that? Are these chains going to become, I am the chain that deals with these aspects of technology, and I am the chain that is going to ensure that these negative things do not exist on my chain? And are chains going to become market-driven in their popularity and their profits based on the fact that they're reading these market things that don't really exist anywhere else because it's rooted in this absolute libertarianism? So I'm going to let you stay libertarian, but I'm going to bring in these other elements of control in a very contextualized way.
I feel like it's covenants, right? We're signing covenants when we decide to be a part of these chains. And the chain has an opportunity to build that covenant and to obviously build brand awareness around it and build a lot of goodwill if done properly. For example, we're very interested, we've always been very ESG focused as a company. And so it's sustainability goals. It's doing the right thing. So we designed this platform for this water company, Alphaa, and one of the things that attracted me to it is it's a plastic-free solution, right? Plastic is one of the biggest issues that we face, and I posted a clip of me talking about the project, and I got a comment saying this is just for more consumption, and I was bothered by it, but it also made me rethink kind of like the platform that we were putting forward. It made me think maybe since, you know, I took on this project because it's a way for me to remove plastic, for me to kind of like implement some sort of tool there to make sure that people are actually recycling. And so we started with a platform that you'd be able to claim a banana NFT every time you drank the water. And moving to 2 NFTs. 1 NFT when you drink the water, and 1 NFT when you return that can, which is the banana peel, meaning that you now have a full banana. Once you complete 10 full bananas or something like that, you now get a free case of water because your impact is 0, right? You've fully recycled your container, and you've consumed water, which you would have to drink. You have to drink water. There's no other way. And sometimes you can't carry around a bottle. Like, you can't go through airport security with your own bottle of water, for example. You have to consume it. There's no other way. And so it's a pattern of behavior that humans will have to do. But how can we implement blockchain tools to track your actual impact, track the amount of plastic that you are not responsible for due to how many times that can specifically has been recycled? And we can bring that into so many other layers of consumption. We gotta wear clothes. We have to eat food. But if we can track how we're doing that versus old patterns of consumption, we know that fast fashion is a huge issue, right? If you could track how many times the garment that you've bought secondhand has circulated, that's massive.
So you're essentially saying that blockchain can not necessarily save the world, but make an impact on the social evils and the social impacts that we can all agree need change.
For sure, blockchain can save the world because it can make us more accountable. And we know that humans need to be made accountable for their actions. or else they just continue. We are the only species that has the capacity to destroy and save the world at the same time. And if there's any tool that can make us more accountable and can push us in the right direction, I'm open to exploring it. And blockchain is a supercharged tool for tracking where items end up. Same thing with funds for NGOs. We know a lot of NGOs, there's numbers like 80%, I think, go into just like running the NGO itself, and 20% go to the ground level, to the actual projects. Through blockchain, you can make sure that the funding goes straight to the ground level, that there's a lot more waste. So once again, it's a tool for solving for inefficiencies. It's not a tool to change the way that we're operating. It's a tool to make us operate in a more efficient manner, but doing the same things with less waste.
But you still have to sign up for it. If I choose to be an asshole and not smog my car and I'm spewing fumes out the back, this is not going to, there's no, I'm going to tag you and suddenly you're on the blockchain as an evil person. You're still signing up and wanting to be a part of the blockchain, correct?
You're not going to have a choice. The blockchain is going to be there for every interaction that you do. And what you're going to do with that information and with that data, it could mean I'm going to get a bunch of free stuff, I'm going to interact with the brands that I'm already consuming, or it could be I'm going to continue to be a free rider and I'm going to get nothing out of it. These people are going to exist regardless. They have always existed, there have always been bad actors, but if we can minimize the amount of bad actors, because even if it's because they're getting less stuff versus the people that are actually participating, it's a path forward.
Because you're training them to want what they're not getting.
Exactly.
You're not punishing them, you're denying them the reward.
Exactly. Which, denying reward, according to Skinner, has been way more effective than punishing them. In behavioral models, we want that reward. Dogs want the treat. It's way more effective to train a dog by giving them treats than by hitting them. That's been proven. And it's the same thing with humans. Humans are animals. So if we provide effective reward systems based on good actions or nothing at all, you have to see a change in patterns. You have to see it. It's just like, it's psychology.
So a lot of the information and a lot of the educational Web3, teaching institutions or educational companies that are out there are focusing on how and why you can profit from this. You're talking about things that ought to be spread within communities that could care less about the profit, could care less about how it's going to be in the background of their lives, but will be motivated towards this mass adoption concept because they can buy into it on a level they're not connected with.
And that's why we try to, the reason why we try to stay away from the word crypto when we're talking about what we do is because crypto is associated from profiting. We are not interested in that angle. We are interested in the impact that blockchain technology will bring to human life as a whole and how we can solve for so many inefficiencies across the board with this technology and just make our lives better.
Let's talk a little bit about proof of stake versus proof of work.
I feel like Ethereum's move over to proof of stake kind of speaks for itself. It was still the most active proof of work chain aside from Bitcoin in terms of practical applications, but the amount of energy required by proof of work has proven itself inefficient for day-to-day transactions. For the amount of Bitcoin that is out there, proof of work could work because it incentivizes less minting to occur, and it incentivizes a fixed amount of Bitcoin to exist in the ecosystem, right? But for day-to-day operations, especially if you're minting thousands of NFTs, you got to go to proof of stake. There's no way that you want to spend that amount of energy, and even if you're someone that doesn't care about the planet, that amount of money, which is what it comes down to.
So why did before Ethereum went there, why did some of these other lesser chains not, in a world in which everybody slaps organic on there and gluten-free, and it only has to be less than 20% gluten-free, right? Why did these other chains not say, we're the eco chain?
Oh, they did. a lot of these chains were claiming to be carbon neutral. EOS was one of them. Polygon talks about their sustainability level to it, and it was part of the messaging. It maybe didn't get to, you know, the bulk of society because, once again, one of the biggest obstacles for mass adoption in the crypto ecosystem or blockchain ecosystem is information. There's no information. It's too new.
So is there a bias of the people that are, I don't want to say running the information system, but, you know, the people on Twitter Spaces, the blogs, are we in a world in which your opinion and your ego and your branding is more important, generally speaking, than getting the messages, the universal messages we can all agree on?
Yes and no. I feel like branding and level of following is very important right now, but people are also interested in authentic messages, right? I don't have a massive following. I have, you know, a small following that has grown into a smaller, less small following maybe, but it's because from day one we've been talking about blockchain for real use cases, and I sound kind of like a broken record. Keep repeating myself over and over again over, you know, different things that blockchain can really benefit the world. And, you know, the bigger publications, the people that have the mass following, they need the content. They need to kind of like figure out what it is that these real use cases are, because, you know, people are asking them. So it's less about how popular you are, and it's more about how relevant the things that you're doing are.
Are we at a point where this whole concept of the baseball card, the collectible that shoots up because a celebrity buys it and raises the value, are we past that? Do we have all these people that we're sitting around going like, I've got the next? Are we getting past this concept of it's a get-rich-quick scheme, a pyramid, a multi-level marketing?
We're never going to be past the point, and this is as a whole, not just for blockchain, that if a celebrity touches something, it has a higher tangible value. Because celebrities have strong brands around them. They can put product in the public eye. That's why so many brands get celebrities to partner with them on specific campaigns. Not necessarily Web3 campaigns, like in anything. That's why we have celebrity backers in anything that we do. But if the Web3 industry has moved past that kind of like rug pull image, pyramid scheme image, I feel like the word crypto, no, because a lot of people really did get hurt. But blockchain and Web3 have a better connotation. That's the experience that I've had, because they're not associated to, you know, crazy projects that people are trying to do to get rich quickly. It's a more mature path. Obviously, you know, Web3 premiums, even in investing, are still higher. It's one of the few sectors that, you know, investors are still looking at. But there's a lot of caution. And there's a lot of kind of like, even in our case, you know, we work with really established companies, but we have to jump through so many hoops in terms of diligence, and we have to show that we're actually doing these things for investors to actually come on board.
Okay, so a lot of people in this space are kind of not susceptible to traditional forms of advertising and marketing. They kind of turn off to that, right? So is there a whole different approach in the Web3 space of how you entice somebody or how you hook a client?
I think it's utility. I think the only way that you're going to entice a client and make them stay, because that's what matters, right? You don't care. I don't care about people that are going to come around, look around my platform and leave. I want, you know, to build real utility for our users. I want, you know, the companies that hire us in order to build their platforms to get something from this, to build a loyal customer base. And for that, you got to provide things that these people want. That's the only path forward. It's not about marketing. It's not about attaching yourself to a celebrity. That'll make people come around for a minute. But how do you get people to stay? And that's by providing a tool that, once again, is reducing inefficiencies and providing really cool stuff that people want.
So let's talk about the DAO. Kind of, what is the concept here?
A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization, which means it is a tribe that operates under a specific set of rules and that is governed through technology. So it's a leaderless society. that, you know, there could be a leader that is coming in and out, depending on, you know, whatever rules of engagement that DAO has. But there will never be a case of you know, a one person that is running the show in perpetuity.
And what are the purposes or the goals of these organizations typically?
It depends. They could be anything. They could be DAOs focused on investing. They could be DAOs focusing on think tanks. They could be DAOs focusing on specific verticals and industries.
So is a DAO kind of a marketing tool for your product?
A DAO could be a marketing tool for your product, or a DAO could be its own thing.
Do you think that the idea of a currency tied to a blockchain will eventually on some level be separated, and the blockchains are going to become more utility based and less I have to be tied to a crypto because it raises our brand, our product, and blockchains will stop caring about the currency itself, because most of these smaller chains, their currencies are nothing?
I hope so. I really do hope that blockchains and their tokens and their currencies do kind of like break off. But, you know, only time will tell.
What does it mean to burn a token?
Burning a token means you issue a token and then for whatever reason you pull it from the ecosystem. You destroy it.
So is this a company's way of maintaining control over the longevity of its product?
Burning tokens may be the most controversial element of blockchain nowadays, by the way. It's like worth mentioning that, you know, for example, for the luxury brands that we're working with, they've asked us, what about, you know, if we get a return, could we potentially burn the token? And we said, you could potentially burn the token, but that could affect your brand image. What you could do is process that return, have that return embedded into the token itself. Like, you know, this item was issued, then this item was sold, then this item was returned, and then this item is reissued. Because this way you're maintaining this decentralized take on, you know, once the token hits the world, it forever exists.
And you could also say, even if you're not buying another product, that it's been returned, you still have the token, and hopefully someday you'll come back and buy my product because you still have the token. You still are part of the brand.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you were once a part, right? Because if you returned it, the token no longer belongs to you. You're embedded into the token, but it doesn't belong to you. You're in the provenance history.
But you're still a part of it and a part of the brand. You're still attached to it. So should you then, because you're tied to it, if you change your mind and come back, get some sort of special treatment on getting back in the fold, if you will?
I would give you worse treatment. You returned my product. You're not a loyal customer.
Okay, so let's talk about tokens in other aspects of it. If you mint an NFT for whatever reason, let's say it's a social consciousness kind of thing, and then I sell that NFT to somebody that you have complete moral objection to, or maybe the entire world does. Like we could think of a rapper right now that everyone would shun at this
Kanye.
I wasn't going to say it, but do you think that it is socially or industry acceptable to say, you know what, I'm going to burn that token? Because I don't.
No, I feel like it's more socially acceptable to kind of like monitor the wallet of the buyer than it is to burn a token. In terms of the industry, you know. I don't know if I agree with it or if I don't agree with it, but you could even like token gate an experience of purchase, right? So something that is becoming very common is you sell a low value token, which is a participation token, so that this way they can enter your ecosystem. So let's say, you know, you can monitor the address of that person, and if you know that person is already like breaking rules of engagement, and you have the rules of engagement in that participation token, you can block them forever.
And they're still part of the chain.
But they won't be able to participate.
Yeah, but there's a record of that bad behavior.
Yeah, and so forever they will know.
Like, okay, let's get
Yeah, you can absolutely flag the wallets forever. And especially, you know, if this idea of identity comes about, and if you come into this world, and instead of a birth certificate, you have an NFT that is minted and is attached to you, and that is forever your wallet. The repercussions of that on you know, being able to kind of like token gate experiences and weed out bad actors is tremendous.
Okay, but isn't the this also that this is your permanent record that we used to joke about in elementary school, or even the mark of the beast?
Yeah, it's your permanent record, and you get to choose if you want to share it with someone or not. If you chose to share it, and then you chose to act in a way that was against the rules of engagement of that community willingly, you should be marked. That's the whole point. You made all these choices. You could have minded your own business. You could have not shared your information. You could have not joined that community if you knew you were going to break the rules of it. It makes no sense. Like, you know, it's like a person is asking to be canceled.
Okay, but at what point along the line of mass adoption do you have a certain number of people that are outside of the system, that are off the grid, so to speak, that we should be worried about? Because they're not in the ecosystem of...
Why should we worry about them, though?
We're talking about basically a social score system that rewards you for good behavior versus, say, China's system, okay? And if it actually is making an impact and making a better society, should we not be worried about the people who want to live off the grid of this new better society?
No, they're not going to benefit from it. The whole point is it's a participation game. You choose what you want to be a part of. If you've chosen to not be a part of it and go live, you know, like a hermit underneath a rock somewhere, it's up to you. You're not affecting anyone.
And because there's no centralization to it, it's not equivalent to the mark of the beast. This is not a top-down big brother, even though on the surface some outside person might go, wait.
Yeah.
This is scary.
No, it's the exact opposite. You choose to only share your information of the communities you want to be a part of. You know, let's say there's a Democrat community, and there's a Republican community, and there's like an independent community, and there's like a tribe in the middle of nowhere community, and they all have different rules of engagement of being a part of that. And they all have different benefits that they're bringing to it. If I want to align myself with one of those communities, I can choose, I'm going to share some of my stuff with you, and I'm going to follow your rules. Oh, I feel like I'm not a part of this anymore. It's not representing me. I can pull myself out, and I can take my data with me and go choose wherever I want to go next. So it's actually a world in which you have a lot more choices, in which you can align yourself with people that represent you.
People under the age of 30 are like, well, hell yeah, take all my data and give me the ads that I want to see. Whereas people over the age of, say, 40 or 50 are like, they're the anti this system. So in regards to mass adoption, how is information and a united front of the OGs in the industry, how should that entity that I keep saying we need something, we need an association of the industry to push for mass adoption in the right way, how should whatever that becomes, if it becomes, or individuals who
it's
are
like a super DAO. It's a super DAO.
Okay, the super DAO, if you will. And whether that comes about or not, people are individually doing this. But what is the approach to reach that older generation that just can't wrap their head around giving up what seems to be a lack of privacy and this thing that on the surface seems super scary, big brotherish, that we were raised in the 70s to be afraid of?
Ease of use, information, real utility. It's evangelizing almost, right? And it's like showing that these misconceptions are not true. But, you know, we're living in the age of fake news. It's going to take a minute. It's going to take a minute for the message to come across.
Should there be an appetizer or a taster menu?
There already is. If you see, you know, the use cases that are being put out there now, we're still at the surface level. We're not, you know, we're not seeing DAOs organizing themselves as communities yet. We're not seeing people kind of like connecting with their own societies and building on the blockchain. And, you know, we're not going to for the next 10 years maybe.
Okay, so let's get back to this idea of the super DAO, or the association, as I like to call it. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing that somebody ought to be speaking for the industry?
It depends on who that somebody is. It could be good, it could be bad. I feel like that's why we need maybe several smaller industry leaders, several small verticals, and lots of use cases being brought to the public eye. The more we can talk about use cases, the less we can talk about cryptocurrencies, the better it is for the industry.